To the flag, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So to start out, we have some visitors here tonight. First on the list is Benjamin Knopf.
Good evening, all.
Would you like to address the board? Or?
Yes. The reason that my wife and I came to the meeting was at the advice of Sean Highland, whom some of you may know, who's on the planning board, whom I have been working with for the past 3 years. As some of you heard earlier, my wife and I are moving into 5972 Hamilton Hill Road, which is a big farm that was owned by Dan and Michelle Lee previously, the Hamilton Hill Equestrian Center that my wife and I are opening back up. And the reason we're coming especially to you today is that with the current prices of houses, I'm a bit worried about what will happen when you all send an assessor to my property and tax assessment tries to match my purchase price or comes close. And
I can stop you right there.
Very good.
To give you some peace of mind. My understanding from our assessor is when a piece of property changes hands, the prior assessment continues. So it doesn't reflect the market value until there's a revaluation.
I had been under the impression that the purchase was a chance for a reevaluation. And if you're telling me that it's not a chance for a reevaluation, that makes me very happy. So thank you very much.
Now, what happens is the county takes that data to determine our equalization rate, but it doesn't affect your property is not reassessed.
And the other reason that my wife and I wanted to come was to meet the board and meet the town. We've been slowly trying to meet everyone in the area and get ourselves kind of established in the community, make ourselves known. So that was the other reason we wanted to come by.
Okay, we're glad you came.
Thank you very much.
And if you want to serve on the board, we might find a place for you.
That I have no doubt.
Yeah.
Talk to Sean about how an easy job the planning board is.
Real quick, if I could, folks, it sounds like the audio might be a little sketchy, so when you can, just speak as loudly and clearly as you can toward the little box on the table.
Okay. Anybody in present who wants to address the board? If not, I'm going to go to those who are zooming in. And Kristen, I think, did you want to speak to the board?
Yes, please. Thank you. I just wanted to, I had been on a couple months ago to talk about the Northland Power Project. And I just wanted to bring you all up to date that they were in town this week meeting with adjacent property owners and I think the landowners as well. They came to our home last night and took pictures. But unfortunately, at this point, they're in the process of contracting property 360 degrees around us on all sides. So it's particularly concerning. There are two things that I want to address specifically. First is once again the solar pilot cost. And learning that if they do the pilot, it is negotiated through the county and a larger amount of money goes to the county is what they said. And so I just really want to encourage the town to opt out of the solar pilot so that the community itself will benefit the most from the taxes. And specifically, knowing folks who own businesses in the community, I just don't understand why we would offer lower taxes or a lower payment to a company that is really has minimal benefit to the community and to the residents of the community. I think even the landowners, many of them aren't residents that are using the property. And so I would like to just continue the consideration of opting out and being able to make sure that the community benefits from any development that occurs. I still would prefer it not to occur. And that's my second piece. They did share sort of the first draft of the planned facility last night. And there's extensive wetlands on the property, so that it's really bits and pieces all over. And if you look, this being one of the higher spots in the county, there's watersheds going in several directions that really start on the land. And so that is a very, they do the 100-foot setbacks, but if you look at how the solar is then placed around it, it would be 100 feet setback all the way through the McAndrews Meadows, and then our home, and then as you bear right to go down towards Kent's, pretty much starting up soon after our property all the way to the border of Andover. And I just think the quality of that, having that at one of the most beautiful places in town is really disturbing. So, you know, they talked to us and tried to convince us that the setbacks would be adequate for not feeling like we're in the middle of, I don't know, Armageddon or something. But I really just feel that it isn't a great opportunity. I did learn that the next step is the auction, where they actually put in the project to see whether they can sell the electricity to the state. I think it's through NYSERDA. And they say that only 25 to 50% of the projects actually get approved during that step. So I am going to be looking into, and they say 75% of the decision is made on the costs of the energy they'll produce, but 25% is other factors. And so I'm going to try to find out who I could put my comments into, and other people that are concerned about the project to NYSERDA, hopefully deciding that perhaps this isn't the best place. I have talked to people that there are solar projects that, you know, are quite a ways from roads and not really visible. That's not going to be able to happen here. And all the meadows that are currently hayed will be pretty much covered with solar. And hay's gotten expensive and it's hard to get. I have animals. And I just think that it, you know, the ag land that has really been tended really well in this area, coming up McAndrews Road, and the other uses. It's weird due to some of the water runoffs, the way that there's fences that will be 7 feet tall that will go like all the way up and around the start of the stream, creating spaces that therefore would get animals would get up into that space, and then they wouldn't be able to move forward. They'd kind of have to come through it. I was really disturbed by the map that I was shown last night. That's their current draft of where they'd be putting the solar panels. So I know they will present again, they said in late September, to the community. But I just wanted to make sure that you all know that there are, and Justin Cudd and my neighbor was over. I know they met with Mary Lou, I think it's Mary Lou on the other side. So there are plenty of us that were met, and I was basically told that 100-foot setback on the field across the street from my house, I wouldn't really notice a 6 foot, 7 foot high fence with panels on the other side. And I just feel they're kind of being disingenuous about the impact of this. So I want to share that, and thank you for the opportunity. Unfortunately, we have guests, so I'm not going to be able to stay on the phone long, but I'm hoping that you'll have heard what I said and keep that in mind, and particularly about opting out of the solar pilot. Thank you. I'm done.
Thank you, Kristen. I appreciate you. Fortunately, we're very, very early in the process. And so all of these things are being taken into consideration, and
Yep.
as we move forward.
Well, I don't want to come back and say the same thing.
Want to?
I'll share when new things come up, and I thought the visit this week was some new information. So thank you for letting me share.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Fred?
I wanted to remind the board that we had identified a lawsuit against the governor in his accelerated siting process, and that it's very possible that the results of that court case may put us back into an Article 10 siting process as opposed to the accelerated version of citing that Governor Cuomo had implemented. And with his leaving the office, things may change there. And so I would hope that we are watching that and not accelerating a process that a week after we make decisions has changed and we miss out on a full environmental assessment, or at least a more thorough look at the issues that is done under Article 10. Maybe the
Thank you.
maybe the northern people have some comment on the status of that lawsuit, and or our legal counsel should be able to bring us up to speed on where it is and any docket dates that have been set. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear?
Kind of breaking up, Fred, but we got the gist of your comments, and Dwight's going to be on the Zoom about 7:45 tonight, and perhaps he can address that issue of the litigation.
Good. Thank you. I'm trying to talk as loud as I can here.
Yeah, you're just breaking up, so you're loud enough, but does anybody else want to address the board at this point?
See Casey's question in the chat.
I don't. AC Goldsmith,
Was curious as to get back up to it. Regarding use of salt brine on the roads. Are we using oil and gas brine on the town roads for road stabilization and dust control?
You got that right.
yeah, we have been, my understanding is we have been using brine that comes from a facility in Independence that is not associated with fracking. However, the state issued a regulation that goes into effect, I think, probably January 1st to prohibit any kind of brine on the road. So that's what I can tell you about that.
Any kind of reclaimed brine.
Any kind of, yeah, well brine. You can make your own brine.
Right.
Yeah.
If I might add something to that, can you hear me? Okay, the Marcellus gas is what is primarily being stored in Independence, and the condensates from that gas can carry some pollutants that are of concern to DEC. So that brine is subject to testing, and it has to have acceptable levels of various radioactive component, potentially radioactive components. So it's not that they have to have brine well materials. The gas can also contaminate the brine at Independence. So that's why they put a blanket testing program in place. So that's what I know about that.
Okay, thanks, Fred. Okay, I think we'll go ahead with the agenda, if there are no other comments. A minutes, everybody got an electronic copy of the minutes? Is there a motion to approve or correct the minutes?
Accept the minutes as provided.
Second? I'll second. All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Approved. Okay, police report. I did not get a police report this month. Code enforcement officer report. You have a copy of that? So he says he met with Buffalo Solar. This is the organization that wants to put a solar installation at the intersection of Lake Roads and Randolph. That application is not complete. When it is, it'll be forwarded on.
That's what they think accounts for this stuff.
Right,
Oh.
yeah, yeah.
Lee Keys' project.
Yeah.
right. But what, 1.9?
Yeah, 1.98, 2.
That's it. Randolph and Lake.
Yeah. So we will be dealing with that in the future, as soon as they get their application complete. Spoke with the Langs on Kenyon Road regarding dividing a property. Rental trailer across from Wisniewski on 44. Okay, basically told them it was a civil matter between the renter and the owner. So is this, I'm not even sure what property this is.
It's the one right next to Tower Bridge.
Brad Ghetto.
Oh, Brad Ghetto. Okay, all right, so, okay. Okay, so that's a civil matter, as he indicated to them. And next was Sean Highlands putting a new roof on a house. Toby Snyder's house, new house, okay, up on Randolph Road. And issued the hiking trail permit for Jericho Hill, top of University. Okay, any comments on any of that? Okay, the monthly report, you just got the monthly report, and we're still working the bugs out with our new contract at accounting service, PBS. And so things are getting done, but we're still working on the bugs. So I haven't taken a look at it yet. Has anybody looked at it?
We got money.
We got money, yeah, we got fund balance. Now, one nice thing about this is that, for example,
Yeah.
if you look on page 3, they give us a balance sheet for the general fund, and they give us a running total of the fund balance. So liabilities, we got no 126 fund balance and appropriated. Okay, so we have 0 liabilities. And 197 in fund balance,
That was the
general,
budgeted, right? 187.
yeah. And in okay, so this is the, on page 5, that's the B fund. They don't designate them. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a continuation off the fire page. B.
So outside village balance sheet. Right. Right.
Basing off the budget and the previous AUD.
Right, so it's just extending the previous fund balance forward, so that's, so page 5 is the B fund, right? Okay. Now we got. Now. Okay.
It's a little different
Yeah,
than
yeah,
what
yeah,
you're used to.
Yeah. Okay, then we got the DA, and on page 7, we got the balance sheet.
Then page 6, the DA machinery budget variance, is that because of the difference in the truck rate design?
So the budget amount, 69 even. And year to date, it's hit 699.
Right, that probably just got picked up.
I'm not sure where that is.
If that's for the grader, was it the grader payment? Yeah, I think that's the grader.
But then was the,
The pickup was more,
right,
It was like 45
73.
Four, maybe.
Yeah.
Or like-
So that's the, only one more year, right?
I think so.
No, no, that's not what we got. Okay, and then the DB fund, page 8.
Are you contracted them?
Oh, you would have paid it.
Okay, 9 is fund balance sheet. Okay, so we're gonna have to, the accountants, we're gonna have to, we'll have to get familiar with their.
Learning curve, but can we reiterate that they promised us 48 hours ahead of time?
That's my fault.
Oh, okay.
Because we're, because I don't work Mondays. And they need everything Tuesday.
Okay, so it's a timing. Okay.
So on Tuesday, I pretty much spent most of the scanning stuff today. And then I had to wait to get the mail for the rest of the bank statement. So I'll take blame for some of it because, and we're both still working on it. Hopefully next month it'll be better. You have it, yes.
And the thing is, we've been-
He said we will have you something for exciting. That's all I'm asking.
And they've been very, whenever we've had an issue.
My only concern is, Jan, are you exceeding your amount of time that you
Oh,
actually?
yeah.
I was wondering if that's.
Yeah, I talked to Dan about it today, we're just gonna, I'll just keep track of my own instrument when I'm actually working. so we just-
Oh, okay, because we don't expect anybody to work for that.
And having a town board meeting makes it, you know, to be honest with you, if I just had those dollars to actually work, I'd be okay.
Sure.
But you have to remember, people are used to being here full time.
Yeah.
So even if I'm not scheduled to be here and I'm here trying, people like to talk, I've let them for 36 years, you know, so, and I, you know,
Yeah.
I can't tell people, I can't talk to you right now, Judy, I just can't do it. So if it means I have to work extra hours, I'll work extra hours. But that's
And
part of
this
it.
is a big rush now with solar projects. That's
Oh,
using
yeah.
up most of the
It's a
time.
lot of time.
So I think once we get through this, it'll level off.
I mean, the emails alone this morning, when I'm not supposed to do it, but I came at 11, and it took me an hour just to get through emails.
But that's it, right, you are going to be compensated for the extra hours. Oh, that's, yeah, just want to make sure.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
Thanks for bringing that up. Okay, any comments about the monthly statement?
Just, I don't know, we did receive 50,760 from the.
Right, the COVID funds. Unfortunately, we have no way to spend it, right? At this point.
I'm thinking we can pay for this stuff with it though.
Oh, that's right,
That's a
yeah.
whole $1,000.
I just had a thought, because obviously our internet is mediocre.
Yeah, I was gonna talk about that.
Can we just pay for 3 years?
Probably could. Yeah, I had reached out to Armstrong this last month, asked them for a pro bono service. That's not in the cards. So we can talk about signing up for their service.
Yeah, from my point of view, if we have to spend $1,400 a year to get, decent internet service, and it'll facilitate this kind of a meeting, I'm willing to do it, because we're gonna be saving money because Jan has gone part-time, so we have budget money to allocate. So we can talk about that later, but that's,
Yeah.
that's the way I feel.
No, the extra money that has not been spent, it's going to be spent, right?
The 50,000, we don't know,
No, I don't mean the COVID money, I mean the extra money.
that we're saving from Jan's salary. And we're gonna have to do a budget transfer, so some of it will be spent. We haven't decided what to do with it. So I think this year we're gonna save about $8,000. We'll just keep it, so we could, we can talk about it.
Okay.
We don't have to spend it.
It could be put over to research, right? You can't?
General, mean,
That's a good point.
you can,
It goes to the
it all
garage.
depends on how you do the budget. You know, because obviously if you don't budget that much in 2022, then because it all comes down to tax rate, you know, where your A and B,
Mhm.
B's and B's, so you gotta just make sure it balances out. So in reality, you could, because you're gonna spend more in the A and less in A, but you can't transfer.
Yeah,
Coming up.
okay, good point. Okay, okay, correspondence. So there was a question last time about the marijuana regulation, and everybody in their packet has a copy of this information. This was online.
This packet came from the Allegheny County State Senate.
Okay.
They're against it.
Oh,
Very
right.
much against it, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
That makes sense.
Okay, so this is not what was on, but this is.
It came from the Office of Cannabis Management.
Okay.
But they sent it to us, so that I didn't have to.
So
I
second,
hear you right, you said that Allegheny County was against.
The Allegheny Council on Alcoholism is a treatment agency.
Oh, council,
Right.
oh, okay, I hear that, yeah.
so when we discussed this last month, we talked about the fact that municipalities have the ability to opt out of retailing and providing a lounge for consumption of marijuana. And that's where we left it. We said, well, we, the board, wanted to look at the legislation. And that's what's in the second part of this. This comes from the New York State website. So, does anybody want to comment on any of this?
I think we should have a meeting or hearing on it, get input, but
I agree. The double-edged sword.
We can certainly, what's the best way to get public input? Just have a public hearing before our next meeting, for example, or?
Well, it'll be a local option, have to have a public hearing.
I'd have an open.
So maybe we could promote that prior to our next meeting. Something in the office on that anybody wants to.
You mean like an hour prior to our regular meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And.
Dan?
Common.
Can you hear me, Dan?
Time.
Hello, Steve. I just wanted to interject on this topic because there seems to be a point of difference in understanding. When we watched the town meeting, the presentation on this, it was that the town of Alfred would receive some of the tax revenue from the sales. And at the village meeting, they think the feeling is that the village would receive $0 of sales tax revenue. I thought during the town presentation, there would be a sharing factor between the county and the municipalities. And it's just something, if there's going to be a public hearing, perhaps that could be clarified, because our two municipalities have 180-degree opinions on the tax revenue topic. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good point. That'd be a good time to clarify it. Yeah.
So if there's no,
It
if
says
there's no
right-
legal agreement between, if there's no written agreement between the town and village, it's supposed to be.
It's on page 2 of this document. It says, there is a local excise tax on the sale at 4%. The tax is distributed to local governments based on where it's located. 25% of the tax revenue to the county, 75% to the cities, towns, and villages. If the town and village within the town both allow sales, the revenue shall be distributed based upon agreement between the town and village. If no such agreement exists, it shall be divided equally. So.
So,
3%.
so if Jim needs,
Would be,
Thank you for reading that. If Jim Ninos could please convey that to the Village of Alfred Board, so they have more clarity on the topic. Thank you very much for citing that.
Okay, thanks for the question.
Can I comment on that?
Yeah, please. Sorry to cut you off.
No, that's okay, not at all. If we do have, it says if a town and village both allow adult use sales. So if the town board does pass if we opt out and we disallow the sales in the town, what happens? Because this isn't stated. This just says if a town and a village within the town both allow adult use sales, the revenue should be distributed based upon distribution agreement, or if no such agreement exists, then it's evenly. So if town board passes, if we opt out and don't allow it, then
Then there would be no tax revenue.
there'd be no tax revenue for the town,
Yeah.
but there still would be tax revenue for the village. I don't see the village opting out. So if the village
The
doesn't opt,
village can't have it because they're in the town, right?
No, they can-
negative. If you look further in this, if the town passes it, if the town
That's on page
opts
one.
out, what's that?
It's right on page one.
Yeah.
Page one, it
If
does
the
not
town
apply
passes a
to any
local,
villages within that town. It just applies to the town, so we can't dictate anything to the village.
if the town passes a local law to opt out, it only affects the area of the town outside of any village within the town. County governments are not permitted to opt out of any.
Right.
This
State made it
revenue
very
is
difficult.
based on sales tax,
Yeah.
and sales tax don't we have an agreement that also sets folks to the county?
This,
This
Or
is-
is it separate?
yeah.
So the 3% would exist out of the.
So if the town opted out and the village did not opt out, they would get the 3% of their sales. And then we could reach an agreement with them to get some of it, or they might say you.
Oh,
we're not sharing. Yeah.
I don't
think
think,
they would have to, if we opt out, then it's gonna be tough to.
right,
Get some.
It's only, yeah, we can only agree if we both opt in.
If you do nothing, if you do nothing, you
no,
divide it in.
that's correct.
If we opt out, we don't get any of it.
Right.
The village would get all of it.
They get the 6%. Well, does it say that,
No, 3%.
or is it assumed
The tax is 4% total.
4% total?
3% goes to either the village or the town or both.
Right.
It's only 3%.
75% of the 4%.
Okay. So we're assuming, because this isn't stating black and white, what happens if we opt out, we're just assuming they get it all.
Yeah, because well, it says if they both allow
If
it,
they both allow it.
right, so if they don't both allow it, then it goes to one allowed it.
That's what we're assuming. That's our interpretation of it.
No, I'm pretty sure that's correct.
They
I've
left
read
that wide
it.
open.
Oh,
I mean, they worded it clearly what it would be, so.
State's definitely making it difficult, that's for sure.
Okay, so we'll have, we'll advertise a public hearing of sorts before next meeting and encourage people to come and give their opinions.
and can we make it that if they'd like to share their feelings in other ways, email,
They can email, yeah.
Are you gonna make a decision after the hearing?
That's
So
not.
it's an information more of an.
Yeah, so
information gathering.
Yeah.
And we'll-
Then we'll have a formal hearing before we pass the.
We're sort of holding off, see where you go, since you brought it up first. We're kind of leaning towards the direction that you guys are moving in.
What
Well,
direction
very
what
interesting.
direction are we moving in?
Finding out.
That's why, we got till December to make up our minds, right?
Yeah, it's coming quickly.
I know.
Okay, we'll do that at the next meeting. Any other comments on this?
Mike would make a recommendation, having done things like this before in a previous life. Do you have access to many of the town residents' emails, put out like a questionnaire of sorts? Because I know a number of people are not going to want to come to a meeting like this just because it's needed. And I'm wondering, only to increase the amount of information that you get, do you have the ability either to send a mailing or something like that, which might increase the data that you get back? therefore make your choice either more representative of the town itself.
That's a good point. I don't know if we have that information.
Are you volunteering to do it?
But we'll look into that.
We do have Zoom though, so.
Yeah,
that
it
is
is
an
on,
option.
yeah.
The town, can't, no, we don't have a Facebook page yet. Wendy and I have talked about it, but,
No.
I think that it would, we could talk about Facebook, we could also put up I know that the web hosting solution that we have offers polling type interfaces, so we could put something like that up and advertise that as a place for people to comment.
There's the Brown folks.
Yes.
On Facebook.
I think
That's pretty big.
some people may want to comment publicly though, and others may prefer to comment anonymously or privately, so we give both options.
Even just getting information out via that page that we're having a hearing.
And you and I can kick some ideas around on that.
Okay, any other comments on that?
To clarify, we keep saying that we can opt in or out of those two, the dispensary and the consumption. They don't have to go together. You can have one and not the other. And you could also have the option of not taking action and then have some zoning elements, so you could control, for example, where dispensaries were allowed. So you could choose not to opt out, but limit where a dispensary could be in the town through zoning.
I think it would be helpful to try and distill some of those critical details down into whatever we provide the public for comment. It might mitigate some of the unnecessary chatter if it's clear what our options are. Yeah. There are certain things we can do and things we cannot do here, so.
I've got the handouts from the training, which at least starts out being bulleted and might be of some help there.
Okay, any other comments on that? Okay, the abstracts, let's look at both of those together for the general fund. Nothing unusual there. And the highway asphalt, so we've done some road work. Lime and stone, soup coat. The old 210 Mac is back. Exhaust manifold. I think it was the work that was done, yeah. Okay, and we got the pickup 4783. Okay, any comments on these bills? If not, is there a motion to pay the bills?
I'll second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you all. Highway report, Bob, is Bob? Are you zooming on, Bob? Okay. So let's take a look at this. The blades on the mower, service the excavator. More work on the 210 Mac. And then they graded Walter Road, Ormsby Road, Cook Road, put a pipe on Hess Road, driveway pipe on Randolph, washout repairs on Fisher, helped Andover, fixed washed out roads, shim paved the sides of Mullen Road, up the village of Alfred, put down some blacktop and mowed side roads, so they've been busy.
Mullen. The shim paving. We don't have a Mullen.
No, Mullen, yeah, it's Mullen,
M-O-L-A-N-D.
yeah. We almost did.
Ormsby turns into Mullen, but that's over the town line.
Well, John's still all right. And John Mary's been working. Okay, So supervisors report, we've got a number of things to do. And so okay, we've got Kathy on. Do we have Dwight on? No. Kathy, do you want to speak about the application from Delaware River?
Yes, I'd be glad to. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Oh, okay, good. Okay, so Labella did receive several packets of information from Delaware River Solar or their consultant Bergman Associates. We were able to review it during the last 4 or 5 weeks when we got the original packet, and then in the last week and a half when we got some of the more recent information. And we are able to, at this point, our review had been for completeness of application documents so that we could start a substantive review and put together some comments. So we are prepared to say today that the application materials are complete. And what that means to you is we don't really have a lot of comments to share, although there's a couple of things I'd like to go over, but we will be putting formal comments together. The second thing it means is the town can go ahead and schedule a public hearing on the project to get those, to comply with other aspects of the zoning code and get the proper public hearings in place. I did have several conversations with Dwight, and he prepared a resolution for the board that would acknowledge the application materials are complete, and that the public hearings could be sent or set. One thing I'm sure you're all aware, when we say the application materials are complete, as I just said, that doesn't mean that we have no comments or, it's done, approvable. At this point, we're just saying the materials we need to start the substantial review are in our possession, and we will follow up with Bergman or DRS on additional comments as our review really gets going. There were a couple of things I'd like to go over with the town board just to keep the ball rolling. I didn't want to kind of stop there. There was a couple issues that jumped out at us. First of all, we did receive a stormwater pollution prevention plan. It was received, I think, less than a week ago. I did have our civil engineers review it, and Mary Stebline, who's the lead engineer, was able to say it's complete enough for her to start her review, but we really didn't get into the stormwater issue at all at this point. We do have the document. I know it was an important issue that we talked about last time, so I just wanted to bring that up. That was the first of the points I was going to bring up. The next point is some of you may have seen the visual assessment that was submitted to the town about a week and a half or 2 weeks ago from Bergman. I have Chris Santola on the line with me. He is helping with the engineering and environmental review of the project. He and I went over the photo simulations in some detail, and we decided if the town board has time, it would be worth us having Bergman or Delaware River kind of walk us through the photo simulations that they prepared. And then, we can add some comments or questions into the discussion if, is that something that the town board has time and interest in doing tonight?
Construction materials here, ready for that, exact purpose.
It's obviously your call.
Is that why you're here? We don't want you to do it.
Is that what you had in large form, what we're looking at?
Yeah, there's nothing different. It was just in case you did want to engage in a discussion, I just wanted to have a large thing that we could point out, discuss, so if you don't want to discuss, I mean, that's fine, we're prepared to discuss.
So what is the board's pleasure? If we don't do it tonight, when would we do it?
We can have that tied in with our other comments. We did have some questions about, should we be asking for maybe another simulation with the leaf off condition? I'll just give you a quick summary that a lot of the visual simulations that were prepared do show quite a bit of tree coverage and buffering between roads and the site where the panels will be visible. So in a lot of locations, they would not be visible to a passerby. However, you will note that all of the simulations were done for non-winter time. So when leaf coverage is on, one of the points that we wanted to ask about is, are there some locations that Chris and I can go into greater detail on where tree cover might be a little thin, there is residential areas nearby? Is that something that the town board would like to see a photo simulation under the leaf off or wintertime conditions? So I don't want to, Labella never tries to delay a project's review. If there is another photo simulation that you might be interested in, I thought I'd give DRS and Bergman some time to put that together. And then we could proceed and go through the whole thing at another meeting, if that's what the board would prefer.
Well, we'd have to wait until October,
Yeah, how would that happen?
right?
Right,
Unless
you can't Photoshop the leaves out. You could.
I should say, I don't personally do the simulations. I do know if we are, so we can show that when, say, you're requesting some sort of trees to be installed. So like if there's not something actually there, we can obviously do those trees to show that leaves or solutions. I don't believe that we can do it without leaves, but Dave might be able to speak to that a little bit more. Dave, do you know if we can easily show a model without leaves on these trees, since the trees are existing?
Yeah, I think I can review with our visualization folks to see if that's possible, but I would say to anybody who wants to see what the road looks like without leaves on it, this Jericho Hill Road is one of the roads that's driven by Google Street View. And you can get and all the leaves are off the trees in the Google Street View, and you can't see, pretty much you can't see the hill or the property through the trees. The trees with the leaves off are pretty dense. So I would invite the board members and reviewers to take a look at that and determine if it's necessary to go to.
Dave, I think there were 2 locations beyond what you had already simulated, and I'd invite Chris Santola of Labella to comment on that. 2 locations somewhat near the array itself. And again, this is the town board's call. It's something we would recommend, but, and we can make a more formal discussion of this at a later time, but it wasn't just from Route 12 or the other name of the road's escaping me.
Kathy,
Go ahead, Chris.
along Jericho Hill Road, just the properties immediately behind the array, if there's a difference between road view and from, their bedroom window, was my only concern in reviewing it. And then along the north, there is, obviously there's significant woods surrounding the majority of the array. However, to the north, there appears to be a little gap to the residential neighborhoods adjacent to it to the north. And, there's no Google Street View there. So I'll be honest with you, I have not personally seen it, but based on the aerial photos, there does seem to be a little bit of a gap, or at least, if not a gap, very lightly wooded in that area. And I understand that the array is about 12 to 15 feet above the elevation of the house there. So, or the houses, I should say, sorry, of the neighborhood. So that would be when I was looking at that, that would be the only additional one of the additional locations that I think the board might want to consider. Once again, these are just our comments to the board. I firmly believe that that the photo sims they provided adequately and project the view as accurately as it can under the current conditions and the proposed conditions. And if a leaf off, I think it was view 3, I think is the only one that I thought might be interesting to see a leaf off view from. And I did not necessarily see that in Google Earth, so I will check that one out. But there was no Google Earth to the residential streets to the north for me to check that out. Would be my only comments on that.
Just to also to supplement, sorry, Kathy, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and point out to the board that there is no landscaping proposed with regard to this solar development. I can understand why there is a lot of existing trees, but it is unusual to have a solar development without a landscaping plan. So Labella looked carefully to make sure, since we're not going to see any of the understanding is there will be no extra landscape plantings. We looked carefully to see, okay, has an adequate visual assessment been done by the photo simulations you received? And these are our suggestions. Dave and Kathleen may know, enough, or may be able to show us quickly that that's not a concern, and that's fine.
And just 2 other quick things. I don't know if Kathleen brought this up. I may not have heard it through the audio here, but to the first point about the properties to the north, those properties are going to be looking at the rear of the panels, because these are going to be tracking panels that are facing south. So there shouldn't be any glare or other issues. I realize that doesn't, obviate all potential visual impact issues. It's more than just glare, but just to clarify that point that the panels are facing away from those houses. And then second point also, and I don't remember if this was in our submission, but we can provide a copy to the town, is we've completed our section 106, section 1409 consultation with the State Historic Preservation Office. They were initially concerned about the visual impact to the president's house on Pine Hill Drive there to the north. And so we went through a process of review with them, and were able to, they were confident enough that there would not be a significant adverse impact with respect to visual to the president's house. And they issued their no effect letter a few weeks ago. Maybe it might be a little longer now, but we have that in hand and we can provide that to the town so you have it for your files.
That's helpful, Dave. Chris, do we have that no effect letter?
We have not, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Chris.
We have not received that. At least I don't have any records of receiving that, but obviously that's good. And we're not ganging up on the photo sim, Dave and Kathleen. It's just a matter of, since there isn't a landscape plan, we were looking for potential areas that might have some visual impact by it. or at least a negative visual impact by it. And those were just areas that, once again, if you can show us, or the board, I should say, and then that our concerns are negligible, or that there aren't any concerns because here's why, we're perfectly okay with that. We're just suggesting that due to the lack of a landscape plan, we, as Kathy mentioned, we kind of took a little more interest and looking over the visual assessment just to make sure that it meets what the town wants to have out of their solar law.
Just one last thing to know is, I know Lavella had asked, in email today, basically how we took photos for visual simulation. So we obviously weren't able to move on. So right now we can move on is that, we actually went through this, at the last meeting, right? We all together, we took the board's concerns, the things that you thought, might actually be an issue for the visual simulations, and that's how those locations. So thank you, the gentleman to my left, it's very nicely holding the map. That just has those locations identified. So those were the areas that the board felt might be part of concern. So that's how we chose some of those simulation, or some of the locations when we went out to do visual simulation. There were a few other places that we asked our visual simulator to use his judgment. We saw areas that you thought you would have an interest in seeing or might be of concern as well, to add those into the simulation as well, which he did.
Yeah, I would say we've picked a very good representation of what areas are going to have a view of it. Locations 5, 6, and 7 on these photos are definitely the ones that have the most view of it. I think if there's room time-wise to move things forward without shutting down this aspect of it, it would be wise to do a non-leaf version of these, but I don't know that it's necessary to hold up the process waiting for that.
Well, we can go ahead and render this, or resolve that this application is complete tonight, but then that work would have to be done during the 90-day period that follows this. And I don't know, well, where does that put us? August? That puts us into November.
In the winter, this can completely cover with snow.
I agree, we should leave this off.
Because I know it significantly changes for section 5, so it's kind of for location 6 and 7 also. It's a lot of leaf cover there. The whole area changes. Well, yeah.
I didn't realize how close it is to the village.
Oh, yeah.
And
Just a stone's throw.
right. I mean, this is Pine Hill Drive and Sales Street.
Yep.
If I could comment as a general, is it possible to comment on the solar field at this point? I think it's been presented at several, or do we wait for public comment time?
Jay,
I can't.
yeah, hang
Can you hear
on.
me?
Ian, what were you saying?
Yeah, if the timing of the, of another assessment foliage free were to not fall within the confines of the project timeline, is there any way that funds could be allocated sort of in a in a reserve of some kind for a landscape plan, having a contingency fund for X number of dollars toward mitigation or expected impacts? I don't know if that's anything that can be estimated or not.
Well, those property owners are going to be affected. Are they going to want mitigation? Because mitigation would have to be localized to their their homes, basically, which would block their view of the entire hill, right? The current view they have is block their view of everything. And there is no way to mitigate close to the project, the view from their location. There's no way to do it. Unless you want to block unless you put up trees on the side of the road, which blocks your view of Jerry Snyder's field and everything beyond it. So it's talking to the property owners at that point, are they willing to lose their entire view of the entire valley? Because that's what that would do.
Sean, do you have any You've dealt with this a lot more than we have.
Well, I guess my question would be, where does the board go tonight for completion of the application? Again, go that route, like we did.
Well, I think that's what Kathy was recommending, that the application's complete, but these are issues to be resolved post-completion.
So as you move forward through this process, and you're not satisfied with this screening plan, you can always do a conditional approval and make that one of the conditions that they still have to meet.
You mean a conditional approval tonight of the application
At the end of the process.
at the end of the 90 days?
So if you're not
Okay.
satisfied with everything you've seen, you say, yeah, we've met all this stuff all the way through here, but we're still not comfortable here. We'll give you your special use permit, put a condition to it, you still have to satisfy this point.
I think that's reasonable.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable.
Hey, Dan, it was hard to
Kathy,
hear
Spencer,
that.
You had a third option.
It was hard to hear. It sounded like that was Sean Grosby. Can you summarize what you all just shook your head and seemed to agree to?
I think what Sean said was that we could, at the end of the 90 days, if we were unhappy with any part of their proposal, we could give them a special use permit with a condition that they do such and such, having to do with perhaps visual barriers. Is that what you were saying, Sean?
Hi, folks.
That's what-
Hi, folks. It's John Schmark from Delaware River Solar. We would have no problem with that. Obviously, to keep the project moving forward, we have no problem to committing to a landscape plan if the board would like us to do so. So if after review of the visual impacts, if there's anything that we need to follow up or proceed with the town, we can commit to do so.
Kathy, did you have a third item that you?
Yeah,
wanted
I
to bring up?
had just two other things so just to put it in context, one of the next steps that the town board will be taking is, finishing the seeker review by analyzing the impacts and their significance. And we will be preparing that on behalf of the town board, and you will be adopting that or revising it as needed. So two other issues I just wanted to raise early with Delaware River Solar and Bergman, that we would like some additional information from them on was the siting of the array such that 10 to 11 acres of trees are going to be removed from the site. The town's code does have solar law does have a provision that indicates tree removal should be minimized unless the trees are 6 inches or less. I don't know if they are 6 inches or less. I'm looking to the applicant to provide more justification or background information about why the siting is it's kind of counterintuitive to cut down trees to collect sunlight from an energy generation and environmental standpoint. So some sort of justification of why they're removing that 10, 11 acres of trees would be helpful for us in our assessment of the significance of the impacts of that removal of 11 acres of wooded land.
If I could, it's Jonathan from DRS. If I could speak to that really quick. So essentially what had happened was this was specifically the landowner's choice. Based on the size of the array, we obviously had some other room. However, the landowner wanted us to utilize that specific location in order to keep a flow for his cattle. Being that he does rotational grazing, and by placing the array essentially in its current location, he's able to maintain the flow he currently practices. So he still has room between the home and the array, which leads to the grazing field to the south, which in turn then does lead to the field to the east. all the way back to that field, as well as to the cleared area under the transmission line, which heads back all the way to the field in the northeast. So he was able to keep his current flow for his cattle, and that is why he wanted us to locate the array as it is.
John, do you know how big the trees are?
I can't. I would have to double check the. I don't know off the top of my head. I apologize.
That's okay. I think, so, you know, under seeker, we have to look at the impact, irrespective of what the landowner wishes.
Sure.
And it may not, you know, there is a lot of wooded land in the town of Alfred, but any additional information you can provide to us to help us with that review and determining that that's not a significant issue would be helpful.
Understood. We'll get that.
Okay, and then the final thing that I wanted to bring up at this early stage is we had a discussion in July about stray voltage and the electric issues. I had Steve Longway of our office on the phone with us. Again, from a seeker review, environmental review standpoint, the issue will be like a basically public safety with the siting of a high voltage electric line in this portion of the town and how it may or may not affect residents and other town people traveling through the town or just going about their business. I thought I remembered an offer to provide more information to, that was Fred Sinclair spoke about those concerns. And I thought I recall hearing that Delaware River could provide additional information. And then I can have our electrical engineers review that. And, you know, so I just wanted to bring that up and see if the town board wanted to discuss or elaborate that at all, or and what Delaware River Solar would be willing to provide in that regard.
I'd like to weigh in on that if I might. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. The position of the developer was that we're going to meet all of the electrical codes, national and local, and whatever the electrical company that's receiving the electricity requires. And one of the aspects of that would clear up questions is what specific areas of those codes address the quality of the electricity, meaning looking at harmonics, and how are they going to be meeting those in terms of preventing harmonics from going into the system. So just specifically zeroing in on the regulation that you generally mentioned and giving us the citation of that, and then how you're going to be dealing with it. And also the stray voltage or ground current issues. I did pick up on the fact that you can indeed produce with that array 6 megawatts, 6 point something megawatts, and you're only licensing to transmit 5. And although it was mentioned that there's some flexibility there and the system can take more, if there is a crowded situation on the grid, and or if your panels are producing at the maximum level, what happens with the spare electricity? You don't have a battery proposed or a storage medium proposed, and if you're dumping it into the ground in a grounding system, extra juice, What is the impact of that, and what federal or state or company regulations are there that you're going to be meeting, and how do they address that? This is an important piece of the hidden, or the things that might have an impact on people, and they wouldn't even really necessarily know about it until it was making somebody sick. The levels of electricity in the lines that go right very close to people's homes as it goes through the village are extremely sensitive. Potentially goes right past many businesses. And what is the impact of that is something that needs to be looked at. And how you're going to solve that problem. What is take some measurements. What is the situation now? What is the status of harmonics on the existing system? And so that you can compare after you plug in, has there been an increase? I'm not sure in my mind how you're transmitting what the route of the electricity is going to be. I live a few hundred yards away and from the connection. And is that electricity going to come to my house? Okay, so I'd like to have more information about what is the electromagnetic impact of the facility. And there's an awful lot of science out there and experience out there from existing solar arrays in the United States and in Europe especially, that talk about these issues. So we need to really have information so that as we go through the seeker process, we can indeed say, well, it looks like they're handling it, or their prospectus is such that it is being addressed. But just saying, oh, we're going to meet all the regulations of the federal government, that doesn't cut it, because many of those federal agencies are captured by the industry and they just play to the industry. We want real information about what the impact is going to be. And we're relying on our engineering consultants to seriously look at that, whether it means delaying the approval of an application or not. And on that note, I mean, if we've got visual aesthetic impacts, take that letter that somebody at the state wrote, take it to the president of Alfred University and to the people in Alfred University that care for their properties, and see if they agree with it. We need that kind of input.
I'm gonna thank you for your comments and see if we get a chance here to get a response from Bergman.
Yeah, of course. So I think the first question that came up was talking about the harmonics.
I can't hear you.
I'll try to talk a little louder. So the first question that you had was in regards to the harmonics. So like we talked about, meet all the regulations and standards that are required. So one of the standards that are required are specifically in line with harmonics. So when we're talking about harmonics, we're talking about the total harmonic distortion. So there is a standard from IEC, standard 610034, which is the International Electronics Committee. So their standard is that you have to have under 3% of total harmonic distortion, and these inverters comply with that. They have under 3%. Just to give you, I guess, for some comparison, a lot of electronics that follow an IEC or IEEE standard have to have under 5%. So these inverters actually have a more stringent requirement that they need to meet under the IEC requirement than some of the electronics in your home. So I think that was really the first question, just about.
Could I just interject and say, if that information, I think what we're asking for a summary of that information. We don't have to discuss it now. I'm just trying to give you advance notice so that you can perhaps provide a written summary. Labella's engineers can look it over. We can go back and forth to get any other questions answered. And by the time we write part 3 of the EAF, we'll have the hard look that is required of the town board and can put that information in the narrative part 3. So I think that's a better way to do it than going through it now. It's a complicated subject, and our electrical engineers will take a close look at what you provide.
Sure. That specifically is on the data sheet, but we can provide that.
Okay, that sounds good to me. I think the board would agree with that as well. Is there anything else you wanted to say about this, Kathy?
No, I guess I would say that, in general, the application looks good. There weren't a lot of issues that jumped out at us. I don't want to give the impression that, we have lists and lists of issues. That's why I wanted to talk about the 3 that we had most questions on at this point. We will look at stormwater closer, and we'll get back to you with our comments by the next meeting. The other thing I would say is the early discussion in the meeting about the 94C project. I'm happy to jump on that whenever the time is appropriate. I didn't interject, but Labella will have a role in helping you through that process. If it's still, as far as I know, they haven't formalized anything with ORAS, so there is still some time, and there's certainly time to talk about pilot discussions, and there's all kinds of ways you can work a pilot. So assuming I'm thinking of the right project and not talking out of turn, we'll have a lot of information to share on that with you as the project progresses.
Yeah, and Kathy and Dan, this is Dwight. I think Sean and I were at a meeting up in Hume last night, and it's the same developer doing a 94C up there. And the impression we had was that I think the Northland project is still, I would say, at least 4 months away from an application, and there would certainly be pre-application consultations that are required under the law for them to have to engage some of the local officials with respect to certain subjects. So I think there's quite a bit to come there before even an application goes in.
Okay, Dwight, thank you, and thank you, Kathy. At this point, if there's no other comments.
I speak now on this topic, Dan? Did I speak now on this topic? I didn't hear you. Is it okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think the town of Alfred, in regards to this project, should reach out to the county, because as a rural person that moved to this area to enjoy the nature of Western New York, I think what's occurring when we hear that Allegheny County is the #1 recipient of solar fields applications, I think we're having a solar dumping free-for-all on our county simply because we're poor. The reason why they're able to scoff up so much farmland to convert to solar fields is because we're the poorest or second poorest county in New York State. And it's going to create a massive aesthetic blight across our county. People have brought up it's because 75% of the county doesn't have zoning. And now the federal government is trying to make amends for the poor communities. I just read about a $2 billion project to reroute Interstate 81 through Syracuse, because it went through the Black and brown communities, because they were the poor communities where they could acquire the land cheaply. When I see the massive amounts of potential solar fields in Allegheny County, we're not good for distribution of power. We're not close to any city. We're simply being exploited because we're poor and the residents don't have the legal means to stop these. I think, and one of the things that's been brought up in the long-term socioeconomic effect of tens of thousands of acres of solar fields in Allegheny County, a few people are winning the lottery. The landowners that are signing the leases and everything are winning the lottery. But with climate change and the warming, we used to have a neighbor that was a farmer, and his partner was in Pennsylvania, and the Pennsylvania farmland was much more profitable because they could get 3 cuttings of hay, and in Cohocton, they could only get 2. Well, very soon, our farmland will be able to get 3 cuttings of hay as well. So I know it's all fragmented, and these big multi-million-dollar companies are taking on little town by little town by little town at a time. And it's kind of like impressive and steamrolling. But as a county, we're literally being solar strip mined. And when people come back in 15 years and say, oh, I know the proposed project on the Genesee River, that's going to be like 1,000 acres. Our county's not going to have the natural beauty benefit, which is one of the few things that draws people here, because we would have been solar strip mines. That's my comment on this, because I see that the town should be talking together. The financial advantages are very minute compared to the long-term damage that's occurring to our county. And I think the towns should work together to try to petition even Albany to get, if they're going to exploit us completely, we need more financial benefit for the pain it's going to inflict. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jason. If there are no other comments on this, I would like to move that we resolve to declare this application complete and that we hold a public hearing on it. Everybody has the language of that, which will be entered into the minutes. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
Discussion. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the motion passes unanimously. Now, what happens from this point forward is that Bob Volk is on here, who is serving as the chairman of the ZBA, and this information will be passed on to him, and then they will work with our attorney and our engineers and with Sean to conduct a public hearing, and over this 90-day period, gather the information necessary to determine if a special use permit is to be issued. I think that's where we are. Okay, if there are no more comments on that,
Yeah.
yes.
Can I ask her a question?
Yeah.
Can you bring this map out anytime? Can you go back to your engineers and just ask them the feasibility? And this would be for all the residents in Center Road. Can you just ask them the feasibility of leaving? How high are they raised off the ground?
So they're a tracker system, so they'll slightly change their height over the course of the day.
They'll change their height, but how high are they off the ground?
So they're about 6 feet to foot, and then the model is like flat on them. And they
Oh, just 6 feet?
Yeah, so
Okay,
then
so they're not
they'll
20
start,
feet up.
no,
Okay.
it's under 15 feet.
about 9 feet tall.
So anyone from 6 to 9 feet tall, can you ask them the feasibility of leaving strips of trees in here that would give, from Snyder Road, that would give the visual effect of a complete set of woods? Do you know what I'm saying? It would screen, because you're pulling out 14 acres of woods. Can you just ask your engineers to see what the effect would be of leaving a couple strips that would visually alleviate them seeing all these acres where they now see trees?
Sure, and I'll ask them. I can give you a quick response now, so. Obviously, when we're talking about solar, one of the main concerns is shade. So whenever you have an object, so say the object is like 30 feet tall, you have to be 3 times the height away from it to not have any sort of shading impact.
90 feet away.
So it's pretty substantial, unfortunately.
Sure.
So I'll ask the question. But I think the response is just going to be that it's going to have a crushing impact on production. Is that right? But we can respond to that.
An idea here, Chris, 30 electric. That much stuff.
Okay, any other comments on this?
Just the last thing I wanted to bring up too, which the gentleman just spoke, brought it up, is that we do also want to complete the referral to the county so that we can put the application in front of the county so that they can review and provide any questions. So we wanted to see if the board would be open to do that tonight, to refer it to the county.
Yeah, that's part of our resolution.
Okay.
To refer, yeah. So that's my.
Great, sorry, missed that.
I didn't say it.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Never know.
I'm glad you mentioned it. Okay, I think we're done with this project or this topic for tonight. Okay. Okay, next thing I have is, I want to move that the board, post the position of part-time code enforcement officer for solar. All right. Any discussion? All in favor? Do we have more comments? Before the motion. I barely got it out of my mouth. Do we have comments on this? Okay, do we have the language of that? Did we get that?
talked to Sean tonight about it.
Okay, we're gonna get the language. Okay, excellent. All in favor, aye? Opposed? Okay. Okay, okay, we did this. Thank you for coming.
Try to exit as quietly as possible.
Okay, we have the Byler seeker that we have to resolve to be complete. I think that's what it is. And we have all the information. I went ahead and took the liberty of putting that on, well, I scanned it and put it on our website for interested parties to comment on. Jan has contacted the 4 parties that Fred had designated as interested parties. So I think our job tonight and the seeker part 1 and part 2 is complete, thanks to Fred. So I think we're in a position now to rule that is complete.
Yeah, we just have to give the county referral, but we have to follow the form for that.
Right.
We can go ahead without that.
Correct. So I make a motion, move that we resolve to declare the seeker application for the Byler Retail Bakery to be complete. Is there a second to that motion? Ian seconds, discussion. All in favor, aye? Aye. Aye. Okay, it's unanimous, and then that also will go to the CBA for their consideration. It's much less involved as you might guess.
Just a regular special use for ag.
Yes. Okay. Okay, now. Dwight suggested that we consider moving the authority to issue a special use permit from the ZBA to the town board. And the rationale for that is, on the one hand, because we've reviewed the seeker, we're duplicating much of the work the ZBA does. Secondly, we're having trouble keeping a full board, the ZBA, and I know, along with Freddie, that I had contacted 8 individuals, and they all declined. So this board doesn't pay enough, evidently. So, and Dwight also indicated it's very common for town boards to retain the authority to issue the special use permit. And he has drafted, and you all received a copy of an amendment to the zoning law that would do several things. Now, I may be getting ahead of myself. Dwight, are you on?
Yes, I am.
The proposed amendment to the zoning law for the battery storage and solar, does that implicitly include the change of authority to the town board?
Yeah, so the draft local law kind of does 2 things. One, it would provide regulations for battery energy storage. And for those battery energy storage regulations, there's one version drafted where it's only the town board doing both the site plan and the special permit. And the other version has the current sequence, which is a site plan approval by the town board, followed by a zoning board approval of the special permit. So that's the one piece of the local law. The second piece is to amend the current solar law to make the approvals consistent between the battery law and the current solar law. So it's what I would call an interim amendment to your solar law, just to make sure that the approvals are all consistent. I did draft some suggested edits to the solar law, which I think should be a something that maybe would follow by a month or two of the battery law. But what's drafted with this local law with the battery law also, from just the approval cycle standpoint in the procedure, makes the solar law consistent with whatever battery law approval cycle is decided.
So these changes would only be for solar and battery applications, not for all special use permit applications in zoning?
I think it would be for all special use permits.
Just for all.
Well, actually, as it's drafted, it's only solar and battery, but you could do it for everything too. That could easily be changed.
We have to change the zoning law though.
Yes.
Instead of just.
Yeah, that would be a change to I forgot what the section, I think 604-C or so, 602-4C. Yeah, that would be easy for me to modify if that's what you want to do.
What do we want to do, board? We're gonna give us a choice if we haven't got numbers on CBA.
Isn't the seeker, the seeker process is something we go through,
We have to.
whether or not it's solar. And so if that's part of our reasoning for moving the responsibility to the town board, it would seem makes sense.
And basically, this allows us to do it in piecemeal. We don't have to do all of it at once. So we could do this and immediately get the solar switched over, and then we could revise the zoning for next year or
I
whatever.
think, Dwight, if I'm wrong, correct me. I think what he's saying is, one, approve and put the battery storage law into effect. Give it a few weeks to settle in the community, then put the amendments to the solar law into effect. And then incorporate both those laws into our zoning law. And at that time, make the amendment to the zoning law governing the procedures for the CBA and the special use permit.
And I feel strongly that it should all be one way or the other, not have some special use from applications handled this way and some handled another way. I think that would be horribly confusing.
As long as that's ultimately the plan.
Yeah.
Is battery
right,
new
Dwight?
to the project?
Is battery storage new to the project? I thought it was direct.
To the Northland project, it's been a part of it from the beginning.
Yes, so, yeah, I think it was close. I think that, so what I drafted for the battery law, it's actually an amendment to the zoning law. So it would go into the zoning law as it's drafted.
Okay.
And it would also at the same time, at least as it's drafted, you can change it however you'd like, however it makes sense. As it's drafted, it also changes the current solar law, so the approval is identical to whatever you decide to do with the battery approval. So as it's drafted, it's actually, the battery part of it is going to go in as amendment to the zoning law. So it's one step. It would be one step.
So
But
the only issue-
I could easily modify what's written there to instead broaden the special permit approval change, and that would just be, an extra paragraph essentially in what's drafted there.
But there's reference to special use permit procedures in other places in the zoning law.
Right, that's the part that would need to be modified is to really incorporate that into, and I'm going from memory here because I don't have the zoning law in front of me. I think it's 602.4-C or so, that it would be modifying that provision to essentially make the town board the authority instead of the zoning board. And I think there's an earlier, I think that's what it used to be is from what I saw, but maybe I'm wrong, so.
So if we approve this, it's gonna be to set up the public hearing, correct? Because it's a law. Yeah. Can we approve it pending the change and make change for the public hearing?
Yes.
Correct.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, you can set the public hearing, but you need the correct one, because if you change it at the public hearing, you have to start over.
Well, if it was changed before the public hearing.
Yeah. I would adopt as is, but put in the minutes, the change that you want to do from it, and then I will provide, a draft of that change. I'll include that in the current draft and get it to you tomorrow or Monday.
Okay, so, are we of one mind that we want the town board to do all special use permits?
I think that's what we're.
I believe so.
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay, so then what Dwight's saying is we can approve this with the condition that it's going to include language subsequently to be received from Dwight that will make all special use permits under the authority of the board. Is that right, Dwight?
That's correct. Yep. And I'll update the seeker. I'll update the seeker part 1 as well.
Okay.
Why don't you say both times? We can negotiate that.
And then, because I know that's what state law says, and then you can delegate to, so we're undelegating.
Yeah, that's what you're doing. You're taking it back. You're taking it back. So, yeah.
I almost think, as far as responsibility, it almost makes more sense because an elected position being responsible for the final approval as opposed to an appointed position.
And how big the town is all, and how much business it is.
Jan, you were here when it was given away. Do you remember why? The responsibility shifted to PBA?
Because the town board didn't want, they didn't feel knowledgeable enough on the whole secret issue and everything. So they felt that that could be their specialty, the ZBA, they can go to the trainings and get more knowledgeable about it. But if you can't get enough people on the board, it doesn't matter if you're just doing it for zoning or you're doing it for everything, it's still the problem.
Right. And it just is gonna scare them away more if they're having to handle all of this.
Dwight, I have one question on page 10 of the proposal. Do you have it in front of you?
I will in a second. Let's see here. Okay, I'm on page 10. Which,
Section E, special use permit approval.
yes,
It says, requires that the ZBA, so wouldn't that be the town board?
yeah, that would become, oh yeah, that one should say town board there, yep. Yep, good catch. Got it.
Okay. Okay. I have no more questions about this, so I think if we're all of one mind, then I'm going to move that we
Now, can we, at the public hearing, can we discuss more than one change to the law? They don't have to have individual hearings, do they?
No, this is all one change.
You know, when it gets to the public hearing, it'll be complete, the change will have been made.
It's all one law change.
So it'll be a single project,
Yeah.
Yeah, there may be multiple sections affected, right? That's what the study.
Right. You're going to be changing multiple sections of the law.
Right.
You don't have to do them all individually, you can do them all at
Well, I
once.
don't
No,
know. We did that with the oil and gas, the changes we made there were pretty extensive, and it was all in one hearing.
Okay, okay, so I'm proposing a resolution that you all have a copy of, so we can put,
No.
No.
Because it was emailed.
We got the
I'm-
one yesterday,
yeah,
wasn't it?
I'm not making copies for your packet with these big,
Yeah,
because they're gonna get changed.
yeah, but you emailed it to us.
Yeah, we got it.
When you get the final. Adopted, I'll make sure I make a copy of that. Because I get confused. with things.
okay, so this is a resolution to adopt the proposed law, which is unnumbered for 2021, establishing,
Yeah, I wasn't sure if this was law number one. That's why I left it open.
establishing seeker lead agency, referring proposed local law number 1 of 2021 to the town and Allegheny County Board, Planning Board, and setting a public hearing. So that's the resolution you drafted right for us. So
That's correct. That's correct.
All right. All right, so that's my motion. Contained in this document. Is there a second?
One second.
Discussion. Yes.
That the resolution would need to have the addition that Dwight's going to provide additional wording, but to make all the special use processes the same.
Yes.
Yes.
And we should get that in a minute. It would be this resolution modified to make. Yeah. Unified SUP process. And it also sets up a special, a public hearing for the 19th, I believe. No,
That's 19.
September 9th, pardon me, yeah. Okay, that's, okay. We have a
Two
second?
special hearings, two special,
We're gonna have public
two
hearing.
public hearings at the same night.
Right, one can receive the other.
One for the marijuana, and for this.
Right. Okay, so we have a motion, it was seconded, it's modified. Discussion. All in favor of the motion as modified? Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Okay.
So,
Yes.
The marijuana is not a public hearing, it's a
Right.
public comment
Public
period.
comment.
so Delaware River and this.
Yes.
Well, Delaware River will be handled by the ZBA.
That'll be farther out. This is just, we just move it forward.
Next.
It's not a-
So they will set up their own 90-day sequence for that public hearing.
Kind of mixing information and hearing
Yeah.
together.
Yeah, so marijuana public comment,
Comment.
yeah.
Public
And then
hearing
hearing
on
on this law.
zoning law change. Okay.
That's not.
Couldn't be in the following meeting.
That's all.
Do we need a public hearing for Byler's?
Yep, this,
Well, we haven't, it's upcoming. In other words, we approved the application for seeker. It goes to the ZBA. They've got 90 days to do a public hearing and make a decision.
Okay.
Yeah.
How big is Byler's building?
I've seen, it's not huge.
Not big enough.
Okay, that's not big enough.
Although we have a notice of public hearing here for Delaware River on the 9th, so I think I really do think.
Okay,
Let's ask right on that. Do we need to have a public hearing on Delaware River's application?
Get public input, yes, I believe so.
Yeah.
I think that's.
Yeah,
by the
it's a
ZBA.
special-
Right, are you on?
Yes, you do need a public hearing for Delaware. I mean, it doesn't have to be the same night, but it's a special, as your law reads, it's a special permit requires a hearing.
But the ZBA does that.
That's a little ambiguous. I think as long as you have one. So, I think, yeah, the ZBA would be the one I think that's required. I think the town board could have its own too.
Yeah, because, for example, when we did the gravel mine SUP, the ZBA held a public hearing. So I don't.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that the ZBA will do this public hearing.
So when will the change in process?
Not until we hold the public hearing
Okay.
on the law change, and not until it gets received by the State Department.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, and in the Delaware project, the Delaware project's under the old law regardless, so, because the application was in before it, so.
Good point, Randy. We're doing a lot of stuff tonight, and.
You are.
Okay, I think,
See why I'm confused, Mike?
okay,
Yes.
do we have anything else that we need to talk about tonight?
Rich, we need to do that for the zoning board of appeals, which is next Thursday.
You've been here for,
I thought I.
That's for the variance, right?
He would do that.
Well, she pretty much like.
well, I hope it hasn't been a dull evening. Yeah, don't think about the fact you could have been published in a beer. I have, yeah, sorry about that. I have one last thing, and that is the sidewalk. So I heard. So the Department of Transportation finally completed their stormwater design. And so what's gonna happen is we're gonna have another meeting of the committee. They're gonna bring their plans, so we can look at them. We're going to set up another walkabout to walk the project to see the final location of everything, that hopefully the board will be able to participate in. Then they're going to put together some sort of, I don't know if it's a video, what sort of visual information for, to be online or here, that the property owners can look at. We're gonna write to all the property owners, tell them that this is available for them to look at. We want their feedback. So those are the next steps. The hope is to be in a position to let the contracts maybe this year and start work next year. It's all tentative, but it's movement forward. Yeah, that's all. Yes.
I think this was in all of our packets, the equalization rates. I think it's gone down again. I think we need to budget for a reval very soon.
I think you should have the assessment when I talk to you about it. If I have talked to her about it, and she has a good different. view on that.
Okay, we can have it.
Yeah, or just have her email you.
Okay.
You know, 'cause
Good point.
I can't explain what it is.
We also,
Saw something.
It's just basically a word.
That they've made us aware.
Yeah, you're aware of the project, make sure it requires them to show that they maintenance.
Do you know anything about what Kristen was mentioning about them expanding the project and moving it slightly?
All I know is a 100 megawatt project with 20 megawatt storage.
Okay.
They'll become part of that, make sure that it is due by the end of the month. Letter. And then
I think your last sentence here answers my question, but just to be clear, this letter doesn't kickstart any of the timing.
We can't at all, we can't hear at all, I mean, zero, nothing of what this person said.
Yeah, we're just talking about a letter that the town would have to send for Northland Power to say that we know they're considering a project so that they can move forward with the process.
To answer your question, it doesn't kick anything up, it doesn't trigger any action. It's just an acknowledgement letter that Northland Power came from the town Alfred to get to the, hey, how you doing? It just has to be on town Alfred.
We don't need a motion for this. We can do it.
I think so, you've been acknowledged, but you might be able to answer that. Wait. I need it over by the speaker.
Dwight, are you still there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me? Oops.
We're just
Yes,
talking
I am.
about the acknowledgement letter for the.
Yes.
The acknowledgement letter for the Northland Power project. Is that anything we need a resolution, or is that just going out from the town supervisor or something?
I think that could just go out from the town supervisor. I mean, if you want to do a resolution, that's
Okay,
fine. too.
thank you.
As Sean said, it's only an acknowledgement. It doesn't say you support the project or not support it either. It's just saying that they've met with you and that they've discussed the project with you. So you're aware of it.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, that's all I've got. The town clerk's report, do you have anything? You had lots of marriage licenses, right?
I've done 8 in the last 2 or 3 weeks.
Excellent.
Have a good night.
You too. So here.
Oh, the other thing, you know, you need your paychecks. We're revising when you get paychecks. Baldwin CBS, normally does the official payroll, the last payroll month that the rest of the employees get paid, so they only have to send 1 batch of checks down. So you will get paid in 2 weeks.
And are we set for direct deposit?
And nobody's filled out this one.
Yes.
I don't think
Yeah, I get
you
something.
did,
Yeah.
but I don't think, and Wendy did, didn't you? You don't get a check anyway, so, I'll check with, I'll check with Christina and see all who she has.
Let me know. Yeah.
So it'll be 2 weeks before you get paid that. Just so you know that that's when you can expect the check for now.
Okay,
Did you have anything else?
I have nothing.
I've raised it for comment. I think we should consider trying to get internet set up this month. I think we should consider trying to get the internet set up this month. It's obviously having an impact.
Is it bad or they just not sharing because of the speakers?
It's our internet.
So, yeah, this isn't ideal, but the internet connection is definitely pretty sparse. And Janet mentioned, I think I reiterated this last time, that the phone, the current voice over IP phone setup that she has works fine, but it's the support that we had for it when it was put in has since vanished. And Armstrong offers phone too, so I think it would be sensible just to package it up and do it all in one shot. They sent me a list of the price breakdowns, and I can forward that to the board. And do we need to resolve to,
We have, well, I think we have an account we can take it out of. We should have got a contingency account in the A fund. Make a budget transfer,
Yeah, we'll have to look at it. It depends on how much it is.
It's gonna run about $1,400 a year. It's $120 a month.
Right now, we're paying 20.
So,
We got 4 or 5 months left. Right. And hopefully we can use some of the funding for it. I just think we should move forward on that.
I agree.
Yep.
So, is there a good resolution to the speaker problem, or this is the best there is?
throw some money at it?
Is Armstrong cheaper than upgrading with Spectrum? We already have Spectrum.
Do.
Just wondering if it's
Did we get a quote from Spectrum on?
We got a quote from
It's
Spencer.
gonna be another, what, 99 a month?
Well, it's 110 or
Yeah,
$20
plus
a month.
an installation fee, plus the, box is another 7 a month, isn't it?
Might as well go with Spectrum or with, Armstrong at that point. Because Spectrum can't touch the broadband.
No, it's
The
really-
bandwidth you're gonna get.
Not a good
Can't touch it.
apples to apples
Yeah.
comparison.
Your highest upload you can get off of Spectrum is 10 megabits, that's it. You're gonna get bidirectional 100 off of Armstrong. So you're 100 up, 100 down off of Armstrong. Yeah. And what you can get.
They've actually upped it to 200 now, I think, is there.
200 up.
Yeah, mine's 200.
What you're gonna get though off of the cable company is 10 up, that's all they can offer because they're lines.
Yeah, 200 by 200, and it's for a 12-month contract, it's 130. But then we would add phone to that. One phone line, you wanted 2, how many phone lines total, Jan?
3.
3,
Well, 4, because you need a separate fax number.
4.
Unless we keep the fax other, we don't use it that much.
Yeah, so it looks like around 180 a month for 4 phone lines and internet, 200 by 200.
That's a phone. Phone is 20, and it's 20, it's 20.
Yeah, it's 30.
Okay. What's the, since you have a great internet line now, what's your voice over IP cost?
I don't have a phone line at my house, yeah.
We pay 20 for 3 lines,
Use my cell
For
phone.
VoIP,
and then nothing for internet.
who's that through?
Call center.
Oh, what's over IP?
We wait for people.
Call center, yeah.
You could always look around for other VoIP solutions and save the $80.
We could, or I mean, for that matter, we could stick with what we have. It was a matter of supporting the units here and everything, which Armstrong would presumably take care of some of that, where we had Josh McGraw set up for us, work when Josh was available for support calls, but
Yeah. I have no problem with internet in my office. Fine. She has no problem. Bob is iffy out in the garage because it's so far from the Wi-Fi box.
Oh, you got wireless in there.
Yeah, it's mainly this is what's causing the problem. If it wasn't for this, we were fine with what we had.
Oh, shoot, what's a 90-foot piece of coax? Just thinking, running into the office.
I don't know, I've done speed tests. I don't think it's, I mean, you guys aren't doing video calls either.
Right.
Internet browsing is fine, but yeah, for TV, it's a little more intensive. I've done speed tests down the hall and in here, and it's similar on Wi-Fi, so.
You want to put something together, just to propose it, so we know what our options are?
Yeah, I'll check into some other options for
Yeah.
speakers.
Okay. Personally, I think this is good, that we have a high-quality internet connection for our meetings. It gives more people a chance to participate, and I think that's something we should try and do.
These are the best participations that we've seen in, what, 4 years that we've been having the meeting? At least you're getting them to come out and watch.
If you're gonna do it, you need to do it right so they can hear.
I agree.
And we can't, I mean, we haven't been able to hear a lot of what they say too, so. I agree. Otherwise, they will not do it.
I think we just figure out how to spend that money doing it.
Yeah, we had 2 or 3 of those speakers, I mean, all hooked up, maybe one. Yeah, this particular one doesn't allow to be daisy chain. Units, there are units that allow for that. So, but if you do, how much does that cost? I have to dig into it some more, they're not.
Some of this can go through the American Fund, right? Yeah. I'm almost positive that. I know, that's what we're using. Yeah, put my picture on another. Wait till you guys try and cut 14 acres of trees down.
Fortunately, it's not in the village.
Thank God.
Do we have anything else to discuss tonight? We've done quite a bit of work.
That's everything I have.
We did the Bible thing. Okay, well, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Everyone else.
We're having too much fun.
Everyone's thunderstruck.
I can't believe that we can have a long meeting and Dan, you can always be done at 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
It is hard to believe.
Always done at 9 o'clock. So I move we adjourn.
I second it. We're adjourned. Thank you all.
For your information, the bank statement, she actually sent me to complete a bank statement, so I can forward those to you.
And don't forget to sign the abstracts.
So I would have to respond. Okay, or something.
And then I can just say that.
Fiber optic.
Yeah, the cable is.
Never.